naturally, how can we tune into those ebbs and flows that we have through the week and optimize them in an empowering way, rather than what we kind of quite broadly have is this situation where the time of the month, oh, if you've got a bit of PMS, is very disempowering.
Yeah.
And especially when we look at the situation where actually, when you're suffering from those monthly blues, feeling low at different times of the month, you have mood swings, some people have irritability, they start to experience anger, rage. It can put quite a lot of pressure on relationships. It can have a huge impact on your energy levels, foggy brain, feelings of overwhelm, which can impact huge parts of your life. And we accept it because it's normal. Because when you speak to other people around you, it's like, yeah, I get that. I'm really snappy with my husband at that time of the month, or I'm really impatient with the kids. I just ask them to bear with me. It doesn't need to be like this. And I think a lot of women kind of know that a little bit intuitively. Like, I want more for myself. I didn't have this in mind. And a lot of women find it gets worse over time. So as we get more on our plates, and we'll kind of discuss a bit why that happens. As we get older, we become perhaps more ambitious at work, we grow, we take on more responsibility at that perspective. We have children, we've got responsibility of the family, we have less time for sleep, all these different, I guess, pressures mount up, and our resilience gets less. And then you start to see the hormones sort of going slightly out of balance. But it's considered normal because everyone else does, even from school. You know people at school who suffered with heavy, painful periods. And obviously, when you're at school, things are still normalizing. But that then just continues because you might be putting the contraceptive pill to manage the symptoms, but you're never actually looking at the underlying root cause. So I think for me, it's important to set that up at the beginning to make this conversation empowering and move us away from that disempowerment we've experienced in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say is going on in women who suffer from this? Because it is a lot of people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's worth just setting up, we're talking predominantly about moods today, because that, I think, when the women I work with and women that I talk with, it has such profound impacts on all aspects of their life. What we're going to talk about today is also going to very much align with women that perhaps have painful boobs, backache, acne breakouts, heavy, painful periods. The underlying root cause is very much the same. So I'll go in this briefly because obviously we don't have time to go into this in a lot of detail. But one of the main reasons is something called estrogen dominance.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're suffering something called estrogen dominance, you've either got low progesterone, low progesterone, or you've got high estrogen compared to progesterone. Okay. Yeah, so they're the main two players when you're looking at estrogen dominance. So low progesterone is predominantly caused when you have a prolonged period of stress. Now, when I talk about stress, it could be all sorts of things. So physical stress, like if you over exercise for a prolonged period of time, it would be things like emotional stress, and it could be stresses from environmental toxins, it could be irritants, food irritants, number of different stresses. Sleep deprivation is a big one when working with sort of high achieving mums, high achieving women and mums.
It could be all of those things, right?
Exactly, they all mount up. So when you have that situation, the increase in cortisol, which is our stress hormone, over a prolonged period of time pushes down progesterone. So you end up having our low progesterone, which is our feel-good hormone. The other angle is the high estrogen, and most women will have a combination of both, worsening the symptoms. So that's when you've got this perfect storm going on. So the high estrogen will be caused by things like exposure to xenoestrogens. So they're all your environmental toxins like the plastics, the pesticides, pretty much everything we have in our households these days. That's kind of gone through the roof. Things like poor elimination processes. So if you're not going to the toilet every day, you're not detoxifying, and and sort of the gut biome situation, that all influences how good you are at detoxifying estrogen and eliminating it from your body. So you've kind of got this perfect storm where you've got those two going on, and that is the number one cause. Other areas would be things around leaky gut. So I won't go into, it sounds worse than it is, but basically it's a bit increased gut permeability caused by stress, sugar, alcohol, food irritants, all sorts of things. Most people will be experiencing that to some extent. Blood sugar imbalances. So if you find yourself sort of hangry, that's not going to help the mood situation. So that's something we need to look at balancing out. And then nutrient deficiencies as well. That will play into all of it, because if you've got any kind of stress and adrenal dysfunction, you're going to have nutritional deficiencies, but it's only going to make the situation worse.
B vitamins, I know a lot of people do have a shortage or a lack of B vitamins, don't they? Or a lot of women do find that. I know you can get vitamin B injections now, can't you?
Yeah, you can. So I mean, I'll talk through which some of the main vitamins to look out for are, but B vitamins are a big one. Vitamin D, luckily the last couple of months we've probably been okay.
Not so much this week.
Not so much this week, but historically, generally in the UK, we struggle with vitamin D deficiency. Magnesium, vitamin C, potassium, they're all some of the key ones when it comes particularly to mood, and we're looking at estrogen dominance and the role of stress in that as well.
Yeah. I've got a question here from Alice. She said, could chemical stresses from what you use for your period affect things? I have stopped having heavy long periods when I switched to a cup. Yeah,
okay, absolutely. So she means like tampons and pads. I think it's called panty liners, but pads, yeah, potentially, because there are chemicals in there. So you can even get fragranced ones these days, which I accidentally bought, which are horrific. But yeah, you do not want to be having putting those. So yeah, absolutely. So we're exposed to all sorts of different chemicals. Even being on the contraceptive pill will be having a huge impact on sort of your natural gut microbiome, and your gut line wall permeability. That in turn will be actually underlying fueling this, even though you won't be able to see it, because being on the pill will be masking it. So further down the line, that could be causing more issues.
Which is a bit frustrating. I mean, I'm on the pill because of menopause symptoms, so I'm on that for that reason, but obviously it could be causing other problems as well. So yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can relate as well, because I was put on the pill when I was young for acne.
Yes,
as a teenager.
Yeah,
and was on that for very many years, without any discussion of any of the potential side effects or what that might mean. And for me, then becoming pregnant was quite difficult, because it took a very long time for my periods to renormalize, because they've never really established themselves in the first place, and that natural communication between the brain and the ovaries just wasn't there. So and that's just one tiny part of the puzzle. Really, I needed to look at what was causing the acne in the first place, which now I know what that would have been, and I can give myself a break out if I want to now. But you know, simple things back then would have been a better option, I think, for me at that time anyway.
So what steps can women do today at home to start to balance their mood swings, Liz, and ease their PMS? What would you recommend?
Yes. So obviously there's a lot of angles we can go for here. The three main ones that I find are most effective when working with the women I work with is nutrition, sleep, and stress. So they're the three that we really concentrate on. Obviously movement has a huge part in this as well, but I find once we start looking at those, movement naturally follows, because people generally have momentum and motivation, and actually this sudden space and time, because when you're feeling so much better, you've got that space and time back to go and feel like wanting to move, whether it's vigorous or just going for a walk. So today I'm going to focus mainly on the nutrition. The main reason for that is very similar in the fact that when I'm working with women, I want my objective is to get them feeling as good as possible, as quickly as possible. So for me, I can do that very quickly through making very realistic changes to their diet. So there's some of the things I'm going to talk about today, because we're talking weeks. So to turn this around, you are talking weeks. It's not one of these things that you're going to have to invest months in and then maybe you'll start to feel better in 6 months' time. We are talking weeks how you can turn this around. So if I can get women feeling as good as possible, quickly as possible, then focusing on sleep and stress, which very much go together as well, and their connection with themselves, which is this kind of underlying emotional stressor. Because when you've got a lot of this mood and the overwhelm and the foggy brain and the low energy that comes with it, you find that you lose connection with who you kind of truly are.
Yeah.
So we focus on nutrition first, and then we're able to move forward into some of the really juicy parts, which is a lot of that emotional connection.
The juicy parts, yeah, you mentioned that.
So if we look at the nutrition side first, so the 7 steps we're looking at is, first of all, nutrient density. So that's about thinking about the food that you put on your plates and how much value it adds from a nutritional point of view. So I think a lot of us can go through life thinking, I need something to eat because I feel hungry, what's going to fill me up? That completely ignores the fact what is going to nourish me. So when you then take that down, I'm going to simplify this a lot, but when you take that down, the food that you're putting on your plate is going to provide you with the energy and the nutrients your body needs to be able to function. Now, taking that right down just to what it needs from an energy perspective, you want to be eating foods that are giving you the micronutrients to help your body make energy. So that's things like B vitamins that you mentioned, phosphorus, magnesium, iron, manganese, zinc, copper, and chromium.
Yep.
Getting a bit technical. Your body needs that to make energy. Now, when you're eating a lot of processed foods, so for example, a typical Western diet might be waking up, having breakfast cereal, having a sandwich for lunch, pasta for dinner.
Carbohydrate heaven.
Quite carbohydrate heavy, quite lacking in a lot of those natural root shoots and fruits, lots of those good quality fats. Those foods will not be rich in those vitamins and minerals I've listed, so your body will be taking from its stored reserves, depleting you of those. So you can see where you get in this situation where you're constantly already in depletion. So that's kind of number one. So it's making sure you're getting lots of those root shoots and fruits, good quality protein and high quality fats, which leads quite nicely into number 2, which is around eating to balance blood sugar support. So if you've got poor blood sugar control, you've got these ups and downs throughout the day. And I'm sure to anyone listening, this isn't going to be kind of rocket science, new news, but it's about bringing that back home. So basically, we generally eat too frequently. So we have snacks and food, and we've been led to believe for a number of years that we should keep snacking because that keeps the metabolic rate up. But that actually is very detrimental. So we want to be able to eat foods that help us sustain ourselves between meals. And we eat too frequently, and we eat meals that are typically too high in carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So it's about finding a balance that's right for you, but generally, our diets are too high in carbohydrates.
So I guess if you're having a lot of carbohydrates and you're eating too frequently, then you're going to have an increase in your energy, but then it's going to be a short. Well, and you're going to be back down again, aren't you? So you're going to want to eat again, which means you're going to eat frequently. Yeah, absolutely. So for us, it's about finding what your sweet spot is. So finding that balance of what the right amount of carbohydrates are for you, and slowly transitioning and slowly removing those. So I think you might find if you suddenly think, oh my goodness, I'm not saying you have to go low carb, but if you suddenly remove a lot of carbohydrates, then you're going to go through probably about 3 to 5 days of feeling really low energy because your body becomes lazy. It's used to just using the carbohydrates as a fuel source. We want them to your body start becoming more flexible so it can use fat as a fuel source, which is a lot more sustainable. So that's a really key kind of shifting point for a lot of people. So reducing those processed carbohydrates is going to be a big win. Reducing all the refined sugar. So you can still have all the yummy stuff, but
look at alternatives for sweeteners. So like natural sweeteners like dates and bananas and those sorts of things, or just reduce the sugar. You know, I'm not saying completely remove it.
Stevia, I love stevia.
Yeah, stevia is good. Chance with stevia, it will provide, it will influence your insulin and blood sugar,
Okay.
and perception of taste. So
Right.
it's just something to bear in mind. Increasing fibers, protein, and fat. So saturated fat is really important, especially when you're in a situation where you've got some adrenal dysfunction, which a lot of women do, especially if you're juggling everything, you're quite a driven woman. There will be a lot of adrenal issues going on, so that's raising that cortisol. It'll probably be influencing the thyroid. If anyone's got any thyroid challenges, you need to be looking at the root cause, and that's your adrenals. So saturated fat is very important when you've got that going on. So looking at so like your kind of like animal fats, coconut oil.
You mean to have more of it in your diet, or limit?
Proportionally
Okay.
more,
yeah.
Compared to some of the other fats, where we've been, again, over the years told to have more of your polyunsaturated fats, such as your vegetable oils. When it comes to vegetable oils, very much avoiding any of those highly processed, like sunflower oil, the seed oils. They're actually more damaging, but moving towards like cold pressed olive oil, cold pressed nut oils, and using it appropriately, like not necessarily cooking with things, using them as dressings. So just getting a bit of knowledge around those is quite helpful.
You know, I've got a quick question about olive oil, actually, because I know that obviously you're not supposed to cook with virgin olive oil, because it turns into a trans fat. Is that right?
Yeah, it can damage it. It depends what temperature and what type of cooking.
Yeah, but most of the time when you buy an olive oil, if you actually look at it, it's a mixture of olive and extra virgin. You can never seem to get like just a regular olive oil, unless you can recommend anywhere for that.
Yeah, so olive oil generally works okay up to about 200 degrees C.
Right.
So for baking. So for olive oil, if you're baking things like doing roasted vegetables, you'll be fine using it up to about that temperature. It's not the best for using for like frying. So then you want to be using coconut oil, or ghee is good for frying. I mean, butter is as well. Butter tends to burn a little bit because of the protein that's still in it. But if you could, I mean, it's all right. I use it quite a lot for doing fried eggs and stuff.
Yeah, for frying, I like.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
Good
you.
option. Okay. So number 3 is looking at those micronutrients. So first of all is minerals. So if you've got any kind of adrenal dysfunction that we know will be pushing down that progesterone, we want to be making sure, basically that's really taxing on our minerals. So hydration is number 1. And again, you're probably thinking, yes, I know I need to drink my water. But with that, make sure you're putting in a little pinch of sea salt, because that will help with those electrolyte balances. Potassium is important. So that's things like avocado, coconut water, sweet potato, and bananas. They're good sources of potassium, and magnesium. So magnesium is one that a lot of women are deficient in. It's very difficult to get from foods, just through our farming practices these days. So supplementing with a good quality magnesium spray can be really helpful, and a lot of women notice a big difference quite quickly when they start supplementing. The one I use is Better You. You can get it on Amazon, so it's quite easy to get hold of.
I'll make a note of that.
From a vitamin,
Alice was just asking, what about maple syrup instead of stevia for something to sweeten? Is that okay?
Yeah, maple syrup, honey. So make sure it's 100% maple syrup, so it's not sweetened with like agave syrup or fructose. Maple syrup and honey are good as well. Dates, applesauce, obviously unsweetened applesauce, but stewed apples, they're all good things. Fruit, if it's fruit based, I mean, obviously it's still adding sugar into things, but when you're using fruit based, you're also having the extra fiber and also the micronutrients that come with it. But yeah, maple syrup and honey are fine as well. Cool. Next up, vitamins. So the key ones I mentioned, vitamin D. So if you're not out in the sunshine, definitely supplement with vitamin D. The B vitamins, so great source of B vitamins of your green leafy vegetables. Eggs are a really good source of B vitamins. A lot of the animal-based products will have some B vitamins in. So it's important, if you're vegetarian or vegan and you're suffering these symptoms and you're suffering with low energy, is to regularly get your levels of vitamin B12 and iron checked, and generally just having a vitamin and mineral complex done, because it can change quite quickly, and you may have been tested say 6 months ago and it was all fine, even though you weren't feeling the best then. But actually they look at what your rather than looking at your optimal levels, they're looking at levels of sickness. So 6 months ago they were probably suboptimal, but they weren't being flagged up within like the NHS guidance around being, so get those checked regularly. The final one would be vitamin C. So again, any type of adrenal dysfunction, it will be burning for your vitamin C. So you can either supplement with a good quality liposomal vitamin C, or just make sure you're getting some extra vitamin C in from a food perspective. So that's 3. So number 4 is, I'll run through these quickly. Number 4 is looking at gut support and detoxification. So gut support, we want to be removing any of those irritants. And this can be quite, again, a game changer for some people that don't even realize they're irritants. I was one of those people probably about 8 years ago. Completely turned things around for me. And then re-inoculating with good bacteria. So there's a type of bacteria called estrobiolome, which is responsible for metabolizing and detoxifying estrogen in your gut. So you want lots of that, and you want that to be, working well with all the other bacteria in there. Digestive bitters are really great to take. So you can either buy some Swedish bitters, or you can make your own. There's lots of recipes online. But adding that in helps stimulate bile production. So that's really good.
What's it called? Sorry, Liz, what's that called? Digestive
bitters. So you can buy
like a beer.
Just like a beer. No, not at all.
No, but that's spelling.
Yeah, that's spelling.
Yeah, okay, got it. All right.
Yeah, that's spelling. So you can buy digestive Swedish bitters online, but you can make them really easily yourself. There's lots of recipes. You kind of need something that's quite sour and and you can add flavors and stuff to it. Have a look rather than me trying to come up with a recipe.
Do that, I think.
But that's quite helpful, because that gets things stimulating and gets your stomach ready as well for digestion. So you've got a good combination of things going on there. And eat lots of cruciferous vegetables, which is very important for efficient detoxification. So your liver loves that, to get rid of that excess estrogen efficiently. Number 5, quite a practical one that some of you might not like me saying, is to reduce or give up coffee.
Yeah, that's a big one for a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily mean get rid of it forever, but whilst you're in this phase, it's around at least reducing it and eliminating for a period of time. So replacing it with something like matcha tea, matcha lattes, if you like a latte kind of. Coffee will deplete your magnesium, potassium and sodium, so exacerbating what I was just talking about earlier. It will screw up your blood sugar control, and just play havoc with the adrenals. So replacing it with matcha tea is going to be helpful. Matcha tea also has something called L-theanine in it, which is a naturally calming amino acid. So it also has a small amount of caffeine. So if you like that combination of a little bit of a kick, but then has the calming side and the antioxidants as well. So that, for some people, will make a huge difference.
But why do they make coffee smell so nice, Liz? That's the problem I find with coffee. It just smells good. You just want to drink it.
I know what you mean. I like the fresh ground. You can just get a bag and sniff it.
Maybe that's
put it away.
Just have a candle that smells like coffee, and you can drink something else.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get a good quality decaf, like a Swiss Mortar Method decaffeinated coffee, that will be a good route to go first.
Yeah, to get yourself weaned off.
Yeah. Another really interesting area is number 6, is looking at natural supplements to help at the beginning as you transfer. So I've got 5 here that I'm going to tell you about, and I use them in different ways with different people. So I'm not saying go out and buy these, but just to be mindful of them, and you can explore a bit yourself around them. So you've got rhodiola, curcumin, ashwagandha, chamomile, and L-thymine. So that's actually amino acid, but you get it from green tea.
Wow, do you know what? I'm actually taking a supplement at the moment that's got the last 3 of them. It's got that in.
Yeah.
Interesting. Perfect.
So, yeah. So depending on what's going on, I will kind of recommend different doses and different combinations, or just 1 or 2. But it's something, so there's something just to explore, because some of those can be really helpful, particularly at the beginning. It doesn't have to be long term, but to get you feeling and get you going in the right in the right direction is quite helpful. And then finally, I want to just say around sleep and stress, because whilst we can do all that from a nutrition perspective to get you feeling much better, the next step is making those changes to sleep hygiene, and stress. And the big one for me with stress is looking at emotional stress. So I work really heavily on women with looking at reconnecting them to themselves, looking at taking time for self-care, but how that looks like for them. It's not kind of the typical self-care. It's actually really aligning that with, who's inside, and helping that person come out and flourish. Because if you're able to do that, and I think they're really excited, I do a lot of work with mums. The exciting thing is your children are looking to you for guidance as to how to love yourself, because they can reflect that in themselves. So a lot of people say, oh, well, I've not got time to make myself a proper lunch. I'll sit down, have my lunch, the kids need me, or I've got to go and run and do something for the kids, or, while they're at school, whatever it is. But your kids are looking up to you as a role model as to how you look after yourself, because you're just going to be perpetuating the way you live now in them as they get older, because they're going to say, well, my mum used to sacrifice themselves to You don't want that for your own children. The same thing with what we're talking about today from mood and PMS. You don't want that for your daughters. So it's about stepping up and owning who you are, so you can then help your children do the same thing, which is quite exciting. As you can see, I get a bit passionate about that. So I do a lot of work with the women on that, but it's such a huge part, because from there, that's where you grow, and that's where all the magic happens, really.
Brilliant. I've learned a lot from talking to you today, Liz, and it's all been stuff that I can definitely relate to my life as well at the moment. So really, really good. And I know, obviously, like you said, we only touched briefly on some of those things. So if anyone has watched or watches the replay and there's anything specific that you need some advice on, obviously I'm sure you'll be happy to kind of delve deeper into a topic for the group at some point, Liz, which would be great. So thank you very much for everything you've shared this afternoon. And if anyone would like to know more about what Liz does, please do check out her website. It's called wellnourishedclub.com. I think that's the same name for your Facebook page as well. Is that right?
Yeah, and Instagram.
And Instagram, yeah. So just check out Well Nourished Club. And then also she's actually, is it starting this week or next week? You've got a 6-week Flourish program that people could find out more about if they go onto your website.
Yeah, absolutely. So it starts next Monday. Enrollment's all happening this week. So it's my new Flourish program. Basically, it's taking all the good bits out of my 12-week program, condensing it into one. So it's all around personalized nutrition and lifestyle. So it's taking the aspects of everything we talked about today, really, and helping women through those 6 weeks. I use the personalized program to get you feeling as good as possible, and then we really dive in with self-connection and helping you kind of move through that and kind of flourish at the other end. So I'm really excited, because it pulls out all those juicy parts that I absolutely love doing with the women that I work with, and it's just condensing it into this 6-week container. So that's, all the information for that's on my website as well. Obviously DM me if you want anything.
Yes, well we'll put it in the group as well so everyone can see it. And it sounds really good, especially the juicy part. I just love the fact that you've got the juicy parts of your program. Brilliant. So is that just completely online? Do you tailor it to the individuals, or is it more of a group experience?
No, it's all personalized. So it's all tailored to everybody's personalized experience. So you get your personalized blueprints based on your health history, where you currently are in your life, what's going on. I also sort of go into quite a lot of depth from that perspective. And then it's a group program in the fact that you'll be with a group of women going through the same journey. So we have group coaching calls each week. We have a Facebook group where every day you've got access to me through that. as a group. That's where the momentum and a lot of magic happens in the Facebook group and on those calls.
Okay, great. I'll
Yeah.
check it out. Definitely. Thank you very much. It's been really, really good. And thank you for everyone's comments and for watching. And I'm sure there'll be more people in the group that will watch later as well. So if you just check the group later on today, Liz, if there's any more questions, I'm sure you can answer them individually on there as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I'm glad we got to do this. And let's definitely get another one booked in for the future.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Danii.
Great afternoon.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.